One of my personal heroes was a fellow by the name of Dwight David Eisenhower. You've probably all heard of him. He was the supreme commander of Allied forces during World War II. And I can imagine how difficult it must have been for him to make that decision. What day and where it's going to be and when we're going to invade D-Day, knowing full well that thousands of young men and women would die. I'm sure that's an agony that stayed with him for the rest of his life.
Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you.
We're here today to honor the veterans, but we're also here to pay respect to the individuals who have passed away, who have given their lives the ultimate sacrifice for you and I to be free.
All the citizens in Fayette County, let us give a warm welcome to Judge Janecka.
Good morning on a brisk and wonderful morning. On behalf of the Commissioner's Court of Fayette County, I'd like to welcome all of you out here to Fayette County and in particular to Praha. And let me be the first out there to thank all the veterans for the service that they have given to this country. Thank you very much. I've been county judge for 28 years, and over that period of time, I've probably given over 1,000 speeches. This will be the last speech I've given as county judge, and it may be probably one of my most difficult because, you see, I may say some things that people may find a little bit controversial, but the reality is I don't really care. Because I'm standing up for the veterans. And we're here today to celebrate veterans, but we're also here to celebrate freedom. You know, we have this incredible freedom in this country. Yet 75% of the world does not have religious freedoms. The free press is only about 13% of the world. It's an amazing thing, and we should be very thankful every day. You know, we talk about the immigrants that are coming into our country. I know they're coming here for jobs, and they're looking for a better life, but they're really looking for freedom. I don't see anybody knocking down the door to get into Russia, or Saudi Arabia, or Iran. We're here today to honor the veterans, but we're also here to pay respect to the individuals who have passed away, who have given their lives the ultimate sacrifice for you and I to be free. And we hear that all the time. We hear when we go to these things, they say, you know, we must never forget. But unfortunately, I think sometimes we do forget. And many times people don't even know to forget. Let me paint you this scenario. We've all been there. You're at the cemetery, and there's a fallen veteran there. It's laid out in the coffin with an American flag on top of it. Mother and daddy are on the first row, maybe a brother and sister. And we all walk by, and we say how sorely he will be missed, and what a great guy he was, and how we will never forget. And then the pastor comes by, and the minister says a few words, and taps is played, and then we go home. And we go on with our daily lives, and we forget about that, what happened on the cemetery. But let me tell you something. Those parents will never, ever forget. Christmas, birthdays, and those special days, but every single day, those parents and those brothers and sisters will never forget the loss of that individual. Even today, when you're watching television, at the end of some of the national newscasts, they say, and today, Private First Class so-and-so from Atlanta, Georgia, lost his life in a province somewhere in Afghanistan. And now to other news. Well, wait a minute. There's a family somewhere in Atlanta, Georgia, that is grieving, that has just lost their favorite son. And we just kind of go on, and sometimes we forget about all of those things. You know, we talked about the men and women who have given their lives for this country, but there's also men and women who have come back who are broken in heart and spirit and body. And those people carry that with them every single day. You know, I bet you right out here somewhere, there's probably a few of you guys that are still carrying a piece of shrapnel in your shoulder or your hip. Or some of you are still carrying the horrors of war with you every single day. You know, you never know about people. That old man that lived next door to you all those years, you never really knew him that well. He was a nice guy and kind of got along with everybody. And then one day he died. And in his obituary, you read, he got a silver star in Iwo Jima. You just never know about people, because I was at a book signing yesterday in LaGrange. This lady wrote a book, and she took the words from about 26 World War II veterans. And it's an amazing thing. It's such a well-written book. Elaine Thomas wrote it. If you get an opportunity, you should certainly purchase it. The stories that are there are amazing. I mean, these guys were living next door to you, and you never knew that they had frostbite and all the different things that they went through in the war. It is something that we all need to remember, and we need to tell our kids. You know, unfortunately, though, there's evil that exists out there all the time. And we have to have a strong military to go out and protect sometimes the rest of the world, it seems like. One of my personal heroes was a fellow by the name of Dwight David Eisenhower. You probably all heard of him. He was the supreme commander of Allied forces during World War II. And I can imagine how difficult it must have been for him to make that decision. What day and where it's going to be and when we're going to invade D-Day, knowing full well that thousands of young men and women would die. I'm sure that's an agony that stayed with him for the rest of his life. He later on became President of the United States. And in his final speech, he said, "Be careful of the military-industrial complex. War is good business." A friend of mine was speaking to me the other day, and she said, "You know, you're a Vietnam veteran." I said, "Yes." She said, "Why does it seem like so many Vietnam veterans are angry?" And I said, they have a reason to be angry. You know, they went off to a war that probably wasn't necessary. And we found out now, and many of us knew about it before that time, that the Gulf of Tonkin was made up. 58,000 men and women gave their lives. Untold amount of Vietnamese people gave their lives. And how many young men have come back with PTSD and still carry the agony of war? And for what reason? Fighting communism, maybe the domino effect. But I want to tell you something. There's a lot of people made a lot of money off of that war. Another thing that really upsets Vietnam veterans is that this war was fought by the poor and the middle class. Most of the rich people, they didn't go because Daddy knew somebody on the draft board, or they had a doctor who could sign that particular letter that got them out of the draft. And we know that locally. All of us know guys here who never went. They got their draft notice and suddenly they were taken off the draft by a letter from somebody, from a doctor, or again, maybe Daddy knew somebody on the draft board. I often think about you grunts that were sitting out in the jungle eating that cold turkey on Thanksgiving when the draft dodgers were sitting on their sofa with their family watching television and watching the football games. It's just not right. You know, 3 of our last 4 presidents never went to Vietnam, and 2 of them actively got out of the draft. We have people in Washington today who are making decisions about military and where to send troops, and some of those are called hawks. And they're very easy to send folks out into danger, but those people have never been in the military. They did everything they possibly could to get out of the draft. I think it's probably very easy to send people into harm's way when you're the one that's not being sent and your butt's not on the line. You know, we need more veterans in politics. We have the lowest amount of veterans we've had for years. And that may be one of the reasons that we have so many problems in Washington right now. I was heartened to see at the last election that 16 new congressmen and women were veterans. And let me tell you something, when you're out in the battlefield, you're in a foxhole or whatever, you're not asking if you're a Democrat or a Republican. You're working together for one cause. And that's to win the battle. And that's, I think, what's going to happen a little bit more when these veterans get to Washington and start reaching across the aisle and working for America and not for their own personal cause. You know, we were young when we served. We served because we didn't necessarily believe in the war, but we loved this country. But the country didn't welcome us back. When we returned home, there were no parades. There were no "that boys," "great job," "thank you," excuse me, "thank you for your service." Never happened to me, but some of my friends have told me that people called them baby killers. You know, we were just doing a job. That's all we were doing. You know, and that's why it's so difficult for me to comprehend what's going on in this country today. We hear every single day that this country is divided. You know, and both sides are to blame. We only listen to the news that we agree with or that we can associate with. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're just listening to MSNBC and CNN and Rush Limbaugh and Fox News, you're not getting the news. You're getting commentary. And that's the truth. You need to go out and find other sources of news. Associated Press, United Press International, National Public Television. There's all kinds of places that you can get your news from. And you know, I've been in office for 28 years, and the first day I was sitting on the bench, I realized that there's always 2 sides to every story. Always. If you're listening to a news broadcast or commentary that just talks about one side and keeps talking badly about the other side, you're not getting the news. You're not getting the fair balance that really you deserve. Politics is a new religion. You know, it used to be when you brought a boy home or a girl home, they would ask you what religion you are. Now they ask you if you're a Democrat or Republican. You laugh at that, but you know it's true. It's truly unfortunate. I've seen it firsthand. Neighbors, good neighbors who were friends, and suddenly there appeared a sign in their front yards, a political sign that they didn't agree with, and they stopped talking. It's just an amazing thing. If you're always blaming the other side, you better look in the mirror. You may be the one to blame. If those men and women who died for this country could come out of the grave and see what kind of shape our country is today, they would be repulsed. In closing, I would like to leave you with 5 thoughts. First, I ask you to think of the many patriotic heroes, not only on Veterans Day and Memorial Day, but every day. Think about them. The worst thing that can happen to a veteran is to be forgotten. These men and women who gave their lives, all they want to do is be remembered. Go out to the graves, go out to your cemeteries where you live, and put a flag out, put a wreath out, and just say a prayer for them. And I ask the veterans that are here today, who've been in conflict or who have just been in the service, to teach your kids and your grandkids about the horrors of war. Maybe if we taught the next generation, maybe we wouldn't have to fight. Start talking to each other. Stop shouting at each other. Let's respect other people's opinion and viewpoint. Talk to somebody that you don't agree with and listen. You know, you might learn something, because I'm going to tell you something. The other side, whatever side that is not evil. The 4th thing, don't ever be afraid to criticize your government. You have a right and a duty to stand up when you think things are not right. After all, the government is made up of people, and people make mistakes. And the last thing, love this country with all your heart. It's the greatest country in the world. God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. You sure we can't talk you into another 28 years? Truly an inspirational man. At this point in our program, we will have the laying of wreaths at the flag-draped coffin here as the band plays. Please advance. Detail advance. Reverends, please rise. Present palms.